With myself, Joe, Packers, and Roach, the Browns owner or manager, I should say. Can't say owner anymore. Come on now, I'm better than that. Yeah, this is a big podcast. It's always good to do the first podcast, get it out of the way, get going through it. But to have the second one to actually be a follow up to the other podcast is always a huge thing, and it couldn't come at a bigger time because we have the second season of TBA playoffs kicking off likely today. We have 6 games underway already, spreads put down for each one of those. So a lot to talk about, and you and I will also give our full playoff matchups. But I'm really excited to break this down with you.
Yeah, I'm super pumped, coming in the second time, feeling a little bit more confident about myself in this podcasting realm. So, we get to really get after it and talk about the playoffs, and obviously that's what most of us are waiting for, and so I'm excited.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I do a better job of being a host. I think last time it was more of the commissioner hat and just yelling and screaming at everyone. But honestly, for as dire straits as it looked like earlier the year, like anytime Andy Akers, who was the Jags owner, decides to leave a league, your league is doing bad. So I guess kudos to Andy for sort of pushing us along in this route. But once Andy left, it's like, oh God, what are we gonna do? We really got to turn around from all you guys that are listening right now. It was great to have this game of the week going on and getting that betting kind of set up. And we'll talk about it a little bit more. But a lot more games have been played, a lot more conversation happening just about the league and the people in general. And for as bad as I thought it was going to be 3 or 4 weeks ago, I am incredibly proud and really surprised and happy with what we're seeing right now. It's just awesome. I mean, I think we had 16 people submit their bids in for these playoffs within an hour of me posting it. And I can't tell you, I could have said, guys, I'm going to give you $1,000 if you let me know, within a day. And I bet you 16 people don't respond at all. That's just how we have been for the entirety of TBA. But yet here we are, just fiddly little gambling going on for our games. And people are over the moon for it. And I just couldn't be happier.
Oh, yeah. I've been dying to get those in, and I think you've really grabbed it and ran with it. You've done an amazing job setting everything up. So kudos to you.
I was going to say, kudos actually to you and to Corey, because both of you guys have pushed me to kind of get to that point, and I have been dragging my feet. I still have some concerns, and I've talked about both in the rules and in the chat, where I really don't want this to be a thing where people who are playing their games are intentionally aware of the spreads or intentionally aware of the over-unders and therefore doing things to make it. My biggest fear is somebody breaking the rules in order to make a spread bigger or something like that. That's just when I feel like those situations could happen, I just instead put the over-unders, and I actually like kind of incorporating both in there. So it's good either way. But really, this is meant to be a fun thing, and the league is doing great. Just don't be the person that ruins it. That's kind of my concern. All right, it's not out of the realm of possibility for me to be worried about that, right?
No, not at all. It's definitely possible. I feel like we have a solid group, and I think most people understand the idea and understand that obviously if you go ahead and try to cheat or do something like that, it could definitely mess things up for the whole league. So I feel like everyone's enjoying it and would rather not see it messed up and see it continue to go, because like I said, I think people are really enjoying all the gambling that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, game of the weeks, I'm excited. It's also featuring good opponents or good rivalries or potentially good matchups, and hopefully throughout the entirety of Madden 21, I would like to have at least one person get an opportunity for the game of the week. I know there are some teams that might be worse off than others. Looking at you, Ben, who has been most active in terms of putting his bets down. There will be times where I would like to try to get those all involved, and I think it's just a good way to get the community interested in TBA and to get everyone kind of aware of the games. The good news is that you and I are probably one of the two most or close to it that watch film and as part of TBA games. So I think you and I have a pretty good distinct idea of how these are going to go. It's interesting, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later as we're going over the specific games. But there's a pretty overwhelming majority on a lot of different people right now. When I'm setting the lines, I really am doing what would I rather bet on, and it's under the pretenses of certain things. I think back to this BLD versus Danny matchup, and I put the over under way lower than I was supposed to. I was hoping we were going to get a BLD ego game, and I know you are aware of what those are, Roach, but for those that's not listening, it's one of those where he's like, oh, you think I'm not going to be able to do this? Well, watch me go ahead and completely shut down this jackass and not let him score at all. I mean, Danny's offense is insane, but it turns out it was like an ego the other way where BLD's like, no, I'm actually going to score like 45 points or whatever. But for the most part, when I'm setting these lines, I am really deciding where I go this way or this way. I really try to do it like what I imagine Vegas would too. It seems like TBA has disagreed with that, so I'm going to have to keep working my process a little bit. But it's been fun so far, and I'm happy that the league and you, Roach, are enjoying it as well.
Oh yeah, and making the spreads, especially in Madden games, is definitely not the easiest thing to do.
No,
Especially when you get to the playoffs, and sometimes you do end up getting some mismatches where you have a wild card get in, or an individual in a division that's not as strong, and those mismatches happen. And I know that you don't want to have to go plus or minus 20, 21, like we're
right.
playing college football or something. So, trying to find that point favorite is tough to do, and you've done a good job at it. So
I could see us incorporating a few more prop bets later in the year once this kind of works out, especially for the Super Bowl upcoming. I do anticipate adding a few of those in there because it's fun and I want people to be engaged and enjoying that full game as opposed to just the spreads. But for the game of the weeks, for at least the immediate future, I see it kind of being this way. So
yeah,
300 points if you get it right. I mean, we've seen it now. A couple of people are either, I think there's still a few undefeated people, although I haven't quite kept track of it. So you get 300 points for getting it right, 0 points if you get it wrong. Not a big deal. If you are playing in the game of the week, or in this case, 6 playoff games going on, you do not get, like, you can put your bet down. I don't care. I'm just not going to recognize it if you do end up winning. But otherwise, yeah, it's kind of fair game. And this goes back to the entirety of the points turnaround. And I've heard a ton of positive feedback. I'm not sure if you have as well, Roach, but people seem to be loving it. And I'm excited about that. And it's only going to get, I hope, better because we're going to be adding points on for games played at the end of the season here to make sure that if you were to use a dev, you're using it for next season. But you're going to get points for games played. Points, I would imagine maybe sometime. I mean, this is conversation the panel is still having sometime down the road for chat participation, but games played is going to be a huge aspect. And one of the things that I think to make a good league, we need to be better at. So I want to reward people that are doing what is needed to make the league the best it can be. So that's going to be another area that we're getting a lot of points at. And then, of course, Lope also got his 3K in points added. And anytime Lope has a stupid hot take, you are allowed to try and goad him into betting on it. Like early this year, I wish I could have taken advantage of him saying the Jets were going to be a 6-win team because I knew from the get-go that was stupid. Lope says a lot of stupid things all the time. He says some smart things every once in a while, but mostly stupid stuff. And you can go ahead and capitalize on that as well if you're able to get him to bet on it. He's been instructed not to take every bet, not like we're going to be super degenerates here, but I know there are plenty of hot takes that happen throughout each and every day in TBA in the locker room chat. Stick around there. I already lost 300 points to Ben for thinking Baker Mayfield sucked. So this is going to be fun. And I'm just happy overall to kind of add this new system into TBA. I think it's breathed so much life into a league that I was pretty frustrated with only a couple weeks ago.
yeah, it's definitely I've seen and noticed a turnaround with people being much more active, especially with all the betting going on and the points you can win or lose to make your team get your team better and get some attributes or devs, if you save up. So it's a great addition to the league. I let my emotions take control of me, and unfortunately, I lost the betting on Bobo. Lost Mickey. Never going to do that again. But we learn and we move forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's get to it. We have obviously 6 playoff games. The number 1 seed, Mickey, who you mentioned, and myself as the number 1 seed over the NFC side of things. I just want to say, like, overall, I have really never seen an AFC division more stacked in any league that I've been a part of than this. I mean, there are legitimately 7 people that I think could make it to the Super Bowl, and I don't think they're that big of a difference. I really thought, indicated by the spreads, it was pretty obvious that there are some people that could make runs. I mean, like Juice, right? Steelers,
Yep.
guy that's really improved. I think he has made himself into a conversation starter. We have Nick returning to the Colts. That's a huge deal as well. Dolphins remaining on the Dolphins right now, and he has been pretty dynamic throughout much of the year. I just think besides you and Danny and even somebody like Corey who didn't make the playoffs, there are some really good teams in the AFC. So I'm excited to watch that one unfold, and I'm thankful there are 7 spots available in the playoffs so that we can have all these good people participating.
Oh yeah, and before I forget, if I'm hoping if everything adds up, if I'm not at work, I'm hoping I'm in the Super Bowl. But if not, I know that RML was able to stream the Super Bowl last year and be able to kind of broadcast it for everyone and kind of talk during it. So if I am available to do that, I'm planning on getting that set up as well.
Who's your host for it?
Have
I might have some tape that can show you that I could be a good host for that.
Yeah, you were my number one, but obviously we're both trying to push for the Super Bowl, so it'd be tough to do and play the game.
Yeah,
So
you just rope in Dan for that one. Like you just say, Dan, actually stay up past 7 o'clock and go ahead and do this breakdown with me. I think you'd be down for it. It'd be fun. But absolutely, announcing the Super Bowl is going to be a fantastic idea, and I really love that. That's probably the only stream that we'd honor also in terms of like prop bets and following whatnot too. So let's get to the playoffs itself. So would you prefer starting the AFC side or NFC, Roach?
I say we can start over at the NFC.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go down in order of the game of the week picks that I have it set down. We'll talk about our overall favorites a little bit afterwards too, but let's just talk about these first three games. So to start, we have the number 2 seed BLD taking on his division opponent, Motherload. Motherload is actually from RML, and I know he doesn't talk much in chat. Really one of the more consistent guys that we've found throughout the 2 seasons of TBA in terms of games played. He's always around. Like I'm always surprised in the few instances where he can't play his game. So shout out to Motherload. Unfortunately, he is going to get fed to the beast that is BLD. I think this is going to be a tough one. I was looking at the games played because obviously Eagles Cowboys are in the division, and I'm not sure Motherload has scored more than 7 points in their 2 meetings this season.
Yeah, looking at it now, looks like it was the second matchup. Looks like it went 42-14.
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah. And then 42-0 in week 12 for yeah. So I mean the reason I set the over under where it's at is I'm assuming there's going to be less scoring from the Eagles' perspective as well. And if that's the case, BLD only needs to win by 35. Hopefully, isn't breaking any rules, and we'll be okay. Like even back in season 1, it was a 35-14 victory. As well as I'm trying to find the very first game, a 13-10 one, which I imagine was probably a simmed game of some sort. It's tough to make sure. Like it's when I'm doing these spreads, I do try to take into account the previous game scored, but you also have to factor in maybe simmed games or not. So I kind of throw the ones that look a little bit odd out there. So yeah, the over/under for this one is set at 50.5 points. This was the most divided among all of TBA right now. 12 people, 12 of the 22 have submitted their bets have the under at the moment. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that, Roach?
I actually went with the under as well. I think BLD does have a tendency to play a tad bit safer in the playoffs. That's where he really thrives on not turning the ball over whatsoever. So I feel like BLD is kind of slotted more for that 30 to 35 range, and looking at Motherload's past scores against him, I was figuring 15 or 14, around 14, 2 touchdowns, maybe 17. So I figured that 50.5 is a good range, but I was looking to get a little below it. So
yeah, if Motherload gets 2 touchdowns, I think the over hits. That's for certain. Yeah. It's just a matter of when you're betting it, do you think Motherload can get those 2 touchdowns? I agree with you. I went with the under on it, but it was close. And again, when I'm setting these lines, I feel like it's 50-50 either way. Mm-hmm. You move down to maybe a 49 or 48.5. That's set up more like field goal possibilities, and I just didn't know how many possessions Motherload was really going to have to move those points down. So the 50.5 was more enticing for the 2 touchdowns. So yeah, I think for certain Cowboys end up winning this one. It's just a matter of does the under or over hit. And again, 12 of the 22 members of TBA who have currently submitted their bets have the under set. So I think that's probably enough on that one. Let's move over to the number 3 seed, which was the most interesting post spread conversation in locker room. So we have the Rams, number 3 seed Quifa against Tendy. Of course, Quifa made the Super Bowl last year, if you recall. BLD was literally stuck in a hurricane, unfortunately had to force loss to Quifa, and I don't think Quifa would have beat BLD to go to the Super Bowl, so it kind of feels a little bit tainted. But yet here we have Quifa really kind of, I thought, emerging this year. And if you remember this last podcast, I was calling him out saying, hey, I want my Super Bowl leader of TBA to do better. Quifa really did better. I mean, in terms of games played, chats participation, like I couldn't have asked more from him. I like for as much as calling him out, I got to compliment just as much because he has been fantastic this year in just about every sort of facet. Super happy to have him in the league, and I think he has kind of solidified himself, in my opinion, in a higher bracket of the power rankings. Right, like he was down in the third or fourth tier for me. I think he's pretty firmly in the third tier and could go even higher depending on what his run here in this playoffs does.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. He's definitely showed up a lot more this year. I've seen him be much more consistent, like you said. So I feel like he's definitely picked it up a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't be happier. But when I was talking about this game, I locked down the Rams as 14.5-point favorites. In season one, I think there was two touchdown wins for the Rams. But Tendy made this point this past night in the chat that he actually beat Quifa straight up, fair, this earlier this season. So to have him as 14.5-point favorite, over two touchdowns is insane when the Seahawks just won earlier this season.
Yeah, it looks like he beat the Seahawks, won 27-24 week 4, and then when they met back up, it looks like when they met back up week 15. Wait, did he beat them in both matchups?
I thought maybe one was a sim. I think one was a sim, but I don't know which direction, whether it was a sim win or a sim loss.
It looks like the Seahawks took both this season, considering one of those was a sim.
Which are the two games? Because I actually have the games played pulled up right now for the Rams.
So week 4, the Seahawks won 27-24.
That was the legit one.
Okay, so then we're looking at the week 15, the 24-14 win.
Yep, that one was a sim loss on behalf of the Rams.
Okay.
So, but this reinforces what Tendy was saying in the chat earlier. The Rams are favored by over two touchdowns, and yet here you go. They actually beat them in their one legitimate matchup earlier this year. It's an interesting dilemma. However, almost all of TBA agrees that the Rams are the favorite. In fact, 16 of 22 people took the Rams with the points, 14.5. And it could have been larger if Tendy was not so, I would say, vicarious or like amped up last night. We probably have 18 or 19 votes go his direction, but a few changed at the last second or thereabouts earlier yesterday. So 16 of TBA members believe the Rams will cover that pretty big differential in points. How do you feel about that matchup, Roach?
I believe that the Seahawks definitely cover the points. Looking at the Seahawks schedule, a lot of his games win, lose, they're rather close. Like you said, he came out and he was able to beat the Rams earlier this season. So I believe that game's close. I believe that Tendy has actually gotten a little bit better as well, looking at his games and seeing him here in the playoffs. So I believe that he definitely covers a 14.5. Does he win that game? Who knows? I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think it could be a 3 to 7 point win. Considering,
I thought you just said like he's going to win 7-3, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh no! I think whoever wins will win by probably 3 or 7, either a field goal or a touchdown. 10 being the max. I just don't see the two scores of the 14.5 really hitting there for the Rams.
And you have some extra insight in this because you obviously watch Tendy play in RML, which is as close competition-wise I feel like this league is. So like there's some ways you can compare it, and at least in this instance, you're feeling pretty good about the way he's playing right now.
Oh yeah. I definitely feeling good enough to back up a win. Not sure, but to back up the 14.5, I'm feeling pretty confident about that.
So I have Quifa right now, and honestly, I might change my mind because I really do try to set these where it could go either way. I think Quifa is pretty good. Obviously, Quifa beat me in the playoffs. Our past matchup, which we played early in the season, I think I won by 2 scores. But that wouldn't have happened if not for 2 pick sixes to start the game that were just bad reads by him. It was like he didn't have the G Fuel injected into himself yet or whatever, because that wasn't the Quifa that I normally play. If I get that Quifa, he makes that again competitive, and I just don't see a scenario when I played Tendy earlier this year and won 28-3, and in after the game, the DMs he's saying like, oh, this is why it's not fun to play Madden against you because you just don't have all the things to stop it. Well, like Barkley ran 20 times compared to 10 passes. Like it's not that hard when you're able to kind of identify a way one team tries to move the ball. That being said, Barkley went for 200 plus yards in their earlier matchup. So like if Kuifa can't contain Saquon Barkley, he still has guys like John Ross and Rashad Perriman to use his speed options. Tenney does. This game could get crazy. I actually thought about doing the over-under for this game because I think there is going to be a lot of points involved in this one.
Yeah, I definitely could see it. I could definitely see them both pushing and scoring touchdown or two more on each side than they had in their first week. So I could see this game being in the 30s, low 40s per team. So I could see it hitting 60.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't want to do another side bet because we already have kind of everything put down, but I could absolutely see that occurring. So you're going with the Seahawks taking with the points. I have the Rams at 14.5. Of course, the Rams did cover their spread against the 49ers, which did end up booting your 49ers, real life 49ers. You're not a huge fan of Jarrett's game, which is fine. Well, I don't know. Maybe you are. But either way, that did boot Jarrett out of the playoffs. He's unable to participate in that. But it was close throughout much of that game. There's opportunities for Jarrett to cover the spread, and I think we're going to see the same thing with Tendy. But again, 16 of the 22 members of TBA are on the side of the Rams. Let's move over to the Lions and Falcons. I mean, like
real quick, Joe. Real quick, would you like to kind of go talk about just who we think's going to win, so we can kind of
yes, but after we go through the playoff games themselves, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because I think it'll be kind of easier for us to just build off of that. So, like we have the NFC least division in real life. I don't know what the name is for the NFC South and TBA, but bad division this was. Disappointing. Obviously, we lost Brandon or Frotz earlier, like to start this season, and I didn't realize that was going to be the reason the NFC South was going to be so terrible. Chaz decided not to show up this year. We had Noah, the Falcons, limp in at 8-8. Now he did have to get a quality win over Dolphins to be able to qualify for the playoffs. If he lost to the Dolphins and Chaz won, I think Chaz was in. But Dolphins, who has been a pretty darn good opponent all season and for much of TBA since he's been in, that was a good win. I just don't know what else I'm going to see for him. And like the Lions won 13 games and yet had to take the wild card because he couldn't beat me at all. I don't know. I put it at 7 and I thought, man, I could probably go even higher than that.
Yeah.
And based off of the way that most of TBA reacted, in fact, 20 of 22 people are in on the Lions. I would almost rather have changed that spread to be closer to the Rams Seahawks. But I don't know enough about the Falcons game. Haven't really watched a lot from him. I do know the Lions, and I think the Lions win this one pretty handily.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Looking at the Lions season, he came out, he was able to beat the Steelers in Week 8. Just stop me if one of these games was a sim.
Okay. I mean, I'll let you know. I haven't pulled up, but no, that one's fair. That one's a good win.
Yeah, I also played in Week 9. I beat him, but I kind of liked what I saw. I felt like he did some good things. Like I said, I don't know too much about the Falcons, but I do know the Lions is a rather competitive Madden player. And I feel like when he gets going, he plays well. So I think 7 also may not be enough. So I'm definitely going to be taking the.
If you told me Noah is going to go ahead and watch film of the Lions play, whatever film is up there, because I'm not sure Lions really streams all as many games, but if you told me Noah's going to watch film of Lions and prepare for it, I think it's possible that he could cover the spread. But if we're just going to go in there and say, hey, yeah, I'm going to play Madden and see how I can do, Lions is going to win because you have to get comfortable with this game before he can really get close to dominating it. And I just don't see there's any facet right now with the way he's been playing for that to be possible. I'm a little bit worried that if I face him, it's going to be a tough one. I feel okay with how I play, but we know each other so damn well. It's only a matter of time when you play somebody 6 times in a season or 5 times in 2 years or whatever it is, that they're going to get a win. That's just how this game works and what happens when 2 good players go off against one another.
Yeah, definitely when, if you don't play, if there's an individual who you believe is better than you at Madden, you need to watch some of their film because people will have tendencies on what they like to do. A lot of people usually will run the same plays at the beginning of the game that they do every week. So, those are little things that you can kind of grab and get a little head start on. If you're able to watch the games, you can sit there and kind of skip to where you're only being able to watch the plays. So then it only takes 10 to 15 minutes. You can watch only their offense. And I definitely do that, especially when I get to playoffs and I'm playing people, like Danny, and I like to be able to watch and kind of see if he's picked up anything new. So, if you want to kind of make a push in the playoffs, those are kind of the little things that you kind of got to do, especially when it gets to these competitive leagues like the one that we're in.
Okay, so from the NFC side of things, it sounds like you believe the Lions and BLD are going to be shoo-ins for their win. And while you think Tendy probably covers the point spread, it's still going to be Queefa that walks away with that. So that's number 2, 3, and 5 seeds that advance. That would then put the Lions in a divisional rematch against myself, the Packers. I think then you have BLD versus Queefa in a rematch of what should have happened pre-Hurricane. That's going to be, I mean, like those are very easily the 4 best people in the NFC, and I think it's going to be pretty challenging. So how do you see those play out, those matchups?
So it looks like you said it's going to be the Lions
against Packers and Cowboys against Rams.
Gotcha. Well, I think it's going to end up being. I think BLD is going to end up getting to the NFC Championship. I feel like he may have won a little bit of revenge after the hurricane came through and didn't allow him to play last season. He plays different. In the playoffs. A little more conservative. I think he just kind of tries to take away from the turnovers, any type of turnover that he could have, because that will win you Madden games on its own. I just don't see. I don't see Queefa being able to beat BLD. Even if he plays well, I think it could be closer, but I think BLD will definitely get the nod and move to the NFC Championship. Looking at the Lions and the Packers, like you said, you guys know each other really well. But when it comes down to it, and it's a playoff, it's the individual who can make the least amount of mistakes, and I believe that's also you. So I can see BLD and yourself in the NFC Championship.
That's what I hope for. When you make it to the Super Bowl, you always want to beat the best, and I think BLD right now is the best. So that's my hope. I was able to get a victory over him in the regular season. That was our first matchup together. But like you said, BLD never plays the regular season the same way he does the playoffs. So I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, the addition of Tony Pollard has been insane. The re-addition, I should say, has been insane because he's been just incredible in terms of the running game. And the linebackers that the Cowboys have acquired in recent trades have also made that defense even more fearsome, which is stupid because I was already like the most worried about the Cowboys defense more than anybody else. So that'll be interesting. Listeners of the podcast before know I don't like to talk about myself much. So it could go either way with the Cowboys and myself. If that happens, I sure hope I get to that point. I think Lions is going to be a very competitive game, and I'm excited to have that one if it comes to fruition. So just for quality's sake of the podcast, I'm going to say BLD ends up winning that one and goes to the Super Bowl. Is that kind of how you see this going too?
My best chance of guessing that game would be a quarter flip. I have to give the nod to BLD just because, it's BLD. When it comes to the playoffs, he wins. So I'd have to give him the nod, but
that's how I see it too. I mean, I can win 7 straight games against BLD, and I will tell you every single time if I'm going into a match with him, I am the underdog. That's just how it is. There isn't any other way I would rather have it too, and that's how my brain operates. So yeah, all right. So we have BLD then advancing from the NFC side of things. I'll be curious to see how everyone votes with the spreads in those upcoming games, but that would be interesting if we get the Lions to knock off the Falcons and Queefa maintain against the Seahawks, because that's your 4 best teams, I think, in the NFC. Let's move over to the AFC. We will start with, I think, the biggest playoff matchup we're going to have this week. It's between yourself and Danny. Now, I set that game at 2.5 points in favor of the Raiders. My thought is I could see this going down to a field goal. I know you've beaten Danny plenty of times in the playoffs, right? Or I'm sorry, in the regular season. Or is it that you've beaten everybody else but Danny? Which way is it again?
Yeah, Danny definitely has had my number. We've had a few barn burners. We've also had a few not so barn burners. But when it comes down to it in the playoffs, we've had some rather close games. Last time we played in the playoffs, there's 2 plays that swung in his direction. I think the last time we were in the playoffs, he had probably a 4 to 5 minute drive with 2 huge 3rd down conversions that ended up putting him up by 3 or something with a minute left. So I can definitely see it come. I know it's going to come down to the wire, but it's going to be those 2, 3, 4 plays that are definitely going to make the difference. Usually, like they do in any game that we have that's close.
Your games are almost always competitive, and I can't wait for people to watch this one because obviously we've seen Danny play earlier. We had 10 plus people watching the Danny BLD matchup earlier in the season when that was the game of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I think people need to be reintroduced to what you can do because obviously you were one of the front runners last year, Madden 20. We're unable to draft your team, and I think you're kind of still sorting that out right now and building quietly to what you can be. The Steelers winning that division still says something about where you're at right now. But knowing Danny and how familiar you are with his offense and what he does and likes to do you feel like that helps you in this matchup?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's Danny's really good at switching up his offense. I don't think he does anything really the same from game to game, but what Danny does is he finds out what works during that game, and he'll consistently try to find ways to get that done. So I know that he's not going to come in and have a bunch of plays that he always runs, but I know when he finds something that works, that's when I'm going to have to adjust and stop that because he's going to keep trying to hit that as much as he can.
That is such a good insight because you're 100% right, and I don't think I could have said it better myself. There are times, and I played Danny a number of times over the many years, and for the most part, at least the last 2 years, I've done pretty well because I like more or less know what you need to do to beat Danny. It's run in the middle of the field, make sure you're being conservative for your throws. You're asking for him to make a mistake because Danny is going to always be trying to do what is most optimal from an offensive perspective, and that might be taking a 50-50 shot or 60-40 because he is so good at offense to move the ball, and if you get an interception, great. There are many times where I'll be up 14-0, 17-0 or something like that, and I'll have picks and kind of drive down, be like, oh yeah, I'm cruising just fine, and then the score at the end of the game is going to be like 34-31, and I'll have been sweating it for the last quarter and a half because you're right. He absolutely takes advantage of the things that he's able to find out mid-game, and that's why Danny's offense is one of the best, and I think the best in all of TBA.
It's like the Chiefs in real life. They can be down, all of a sudden they score 28 points in a quarter.
I don't know if Danny finds that as a compliment, being a Raiders fan himself, or is just upset that he's being compared to those dastardly Chiefs. But yeah, the game is set at 2.5 points in favor of the Raiders right now. I'll be honest, I picked you only because I didn't want to be on this podcast, knew we were doing it today, and talk about how I picked Danny instead. So most of TBA disagrees with that assessment. In fact, that's the tied for the most that people have picked for. We have 20 of the 22 members are all in on the Raiders.
Good. That's it's been that type of season for me. Danny's always been up there. Pat myself on the back a little bit for starting 1-4 and definitely turning it around when I was able to beat Mickey. Definitely turned the season around. But I can go out there and win the game, or I can sit back. I think what's the worst part is in my head I know that he's beaten me much more than I've beaten him. No matter how close the games are, I think that's definitely the biggest handicap for me. Instead of going out and play Madden, I start to think about how he's beaten me.
Well, if it gives you any confidence, the past 2 Super Bowl winners of TBA have picked you as the one that's going to be able to handle it. Of course, myself, who I already admitted probably wouldn't have done that if we weren't doing the podcast. But Mickey did actually pick you for this one. He is one of the 2 people that are in on the Browns for this contest. So overwhelming majority of TBA believes it is the Raiders that are going to come away victorious in this matchup. Again, 2.5-point favorites over the Browns. Let's move over to a game that I think is going to be really interesting. I want to hear your insight on the Steelers and Dolphins. The over-under is set at 44.5 points for this contest. And obviously, I think it's a combination of 2 styles that are 2 of the same styles, right? The Dolphins really want to run the ball. The Steelers don't want to run the ball to the same extent the Dolphins do. But there is like an offensive thing where I just don't see there being a lot of possessions that actually translate into points. And if they are, they're going to be big plays. Am I crazy to think that?
No, not at all. Not at all. I totally agree. I actually did go with the over because I think there will be a good amount of big plays. I just played the Steelers week 15, 16, and I was up and I was doing really well, and all of a sudden he started to creep his way back in the game. So I definitely never count either of those individuals out, no matter what. They have the ability to score and score quickly as well. So that's why I decided to go with the over.
Yeah, most of the Steelers games, I would have to check what the average point total is for them. But I mean, like they are obviously doing incredible work right now. Actually, average points at 31 right now, and the Dolphins also have 31 average points at the moment. So you would think this is a clash of two offensive styles. My thinking is when you get to the playoffs in Madden, again, if you're doing the work in the film and kind of preparing, you should know more or less what a person's game plan is going to be. I mean, you look at the Dolphins games with the AFC, the Patriots, even the Jets, obviously the Bills, they're able to kind of game plan and adjust for what the Dolphins are going to do because you've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
If you come with that same type of preparation, I think you can apply that same type of deal too. I mean, just look at this Week 17 matchup where the Falcons ended up winning and had to win to get into the playoffs. There was
Yeah.
only 14 points scored by the Dolphins. So I think I took the under on that one. I guess I'm not positive. Yeah, I took the under. Oh, shoot, I took the over. I think the under is in play, is what I'm saying. The under is absolutely in play on this one because there is a possibility of Steelers is able to come prepared to be able to stop the running game. There is not much else from the Dolphins side of things. I have heard with a not so, well, I would say, Dolphins has made it very clear that he is looking for a mobile quarterback to unlock a different part of his offense. If you are in the interest of trading quarterbacks this year, definitely check with the Dolphins. I know he's definitely interested in one. The over under 44.5. I took the over, but I think it's very obvious this could be the under play. Unfortunately, I might not have said it well enough because 19 of the 22 members of TBA also agreed with me that the over is the way to go. And I think, unfortunately, that's just what Madden 21 is, right? Like if this was an actual NFL game with the schemes that these two teams run, I think it's right on the nose. But Madden, there's just so many points scored because it is such a dumb game.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about an individual. I pride myself on being able to run the ball as well. But the thing is, when you run the ball well, if you run into an issue where someone's stopping your run, those points are going to start to diminish from being able to score 28 to 35 to now you're getting 14, 17, having to figure out stuff in the passing game. So
Yeah, and I mean the clock runs down too, right? I mean that's like another part of this factor where there's just less opportunities for teams to score because if both teams are running the ball, and certainly the Dolphins are going to be, the clock is ticking away more than maybe an incomplete pass would. So just factor that in again. 19 of 22 members of TBA ended up going with the over on that one, and it makes sense because Madden 21 is all about points. Moving over to the last game on the spread, we have I think one of the more interesting ones for you. It might be hard for you to talk about. Your two boys, right? Nick, Bobo, Bobo.
yeah.
Colts, Bills, number 4, number 5 seed. Obviously, the Bills, one of the best records in the AFC, but were unable to claim that division crown. And ultimately, that's allowed the Patriots to get the number 1 seed. They slipped all the way down to number 5. And you have the Colts, who kind of had to work their way back in, got a sim win to end the season, and that claimed the NFC or AFC South crown. I'm excited. Obviously, Nick is one of the two people that have beat me thus far in Madden 21. It was a legitimate victory. I had a lot of fun. I was pissed off that the internet sucked, but he kicked my ass. And I think Bobo probably kicks my ass too if we play at some point, and it could be as well as next year. So this game is going to be a lot of fun. And if it were not for you and Danny playing, this would absolutely be my favorite game of this playoff spread.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember what week he came in and grabbed the Colts? Because he beat you with the Texans.
Yes,
right?
yep. He beat me in season 1 with the Texans. I want to say so Shane left after his loss to the Rams, Quifa, and I don't know if we replaced them or not directly after. It might have been like a game or two afterwards, but that's kind of thereabouts where I could identify when he came in and joined the Colts.
Yeah. It looks like he lost to the Rams and then had a bye week. And then it looks like he went on a winning. Looks like he won out other than his loss against Mickey, which was a 35-17 loss week 13. So I believe he may have grabbed him right after that bye week because then he got a win against the Titans in week 10.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a quality loss if you could have one of those against Mickey too, right? With how incredible he has been, and certainly has all the weapons capable. So, I guess let's first start out like, do you think the spread is fair? TBA disagrees. There's an overwhelming favorite on one of these, but do you feel like the spread is fair, or do you think there's going to be blowout proportions for either one of these teams?
No, I believe the spread's extremely fair considering they've played so many times. We before all of us even got in connected franchises halfway through last season. For about 3 seasons, 3 Maddens, we had our own with our friends, where there was only like eight to 10 of us. Um, so they were playing all the time. So when you, like you said, when you play an individual often, it's less likely for that game to get away from somebody.
Okay. Yeah, I had a hard time setting this one because I know how good Bills can be, and I also know how good the Colts can be. And honestly, it's one of those things where I'm almost thankful neither one was able to draft their team, because if they were, we're talking like one of the more dominant ones. We're probably looking at like another Mickey in the AFC.
Yeah.
And you know, it's I think both are good enough general managers that their teams are going to get to that point anyway by the end of whatever this Madden 21 cycle is. But this is, I mean, like that AFC South division was up for the taking when Shane was there. Now we've added Nick to that equation. We've also added the Jags guy too. I think who's going to be an incredible player too. This is completely different, and I think again makes the AFC as strong as it has been with those two guys. So which way did you lean on this? And do you feel like there's a team that ends up winning as opposed to just covering the spread?
Against my pick earlier, where I said I wasn't going to pick Bobo anymore, I went with Bobo again, covering the 4. I think he could win. I think he could win by a touchdown or more. He's playing well. He's in the process of, unfortunately for the rest of the league, building a running back that is extremely again.
95 speed when he was drafted, right? If I'm remembering that correctly, or like something around there.
I think it's 94, 95. Same with acceleration. So yeah, it's if he's able to run well with him, I could see him winning this game a little easier. But I could also see Nick covering, getting a backdoor cover as well, because he'll continue to keep trying to score either way. So I do have Bobo covering the spread and obviously getting the win.
Josh Huntington is the Bills rookie running back. I don't know what his dev is, but he's 94 speed, 92 acceleration. He has over 1,200 yards this season and 17 touchdowns. Of course, that's probably added on in the playoffs. Like, is Nick good at stopping the run? I mean, that's one of those things where if I'm facing a team that runs the ball, I'm like, okay, I probably can win because I limit the turnovers, but I'm generally pretty good at stopping the run. Can Nick do that, though? Or is it one of those things where they played each other so many times that you can almost have plans for what somebody else's plans might be to stop you?
Yeah, I mean, the playing each other a good amount of times is definitely going to come into effect. Can he stop the run? I'm not sure. I know he does well against the pass. He's able to cover a lot of field and do that well with the pass. As far as the run goes, not sure if he'll be able to stop the run in that game, which I think is going to be the deciding factor. So.
Well, you and the rest of TBA tend to agree the Bills favored by 4 points has been selected by 20 of the 22 members. There are only two people obviously on the Colts at the moment, and that's Jarrett, who I don't know what his record is, but I guess I don't know if I'm super for. And then Josh, who submitted it right away, basically when I submitted those, and I could see that being changed as well. So unfortunately, I didn't set these well enough. Like I do feel like home field plays a bit of a difference in Madden, but not where you're like, oh yeah, let's just put down 3 points for them and then go from there. It's a tough thing. I'll still keep trying to perfect these spreads a little bit more. But honestly, like I could see it going both ways. I took the Bills in this one, but I think it's going to be competitive, and I wouldn't be surprised if it takes a winning field goal to do it. And I don't want to always end spreads at 3.5 or 2.5, or whatever. But I think a field goal is going to be the way this goes. If not, I have the Bills in this one, but I think it can go either way. I really do.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
What Nick does well on defense as well is he is super good at timing the strip.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, so if he can pull off a strip or two, I could easily see it going back towards his way. So that's going to come into effect. But I think Bobo's running game will be a little too much with that young stud that he's got over there.
I don't get tilted too much playing Madden. For the most part, I know it's a stupid game and stupid things happen. So it's kind of like, yeah, it'll work out for me eventually, as long as I keep my head up. Fumbles piss me off. Like fumbles tilt me more than they should, because it's just unnecessary. It feels like, and I never get them, and other teams always get them, to the point where I'm like, fuck it, I'm just putting on conservative. I probably can't say that. I don't want to get the video removed from YouTube. But yeah, it's just like, oh, whatever. I get upset that I have to put conservative on and not have fumbles happen. So that was a part of our game with the Texans in season 1, which ended up making a difference. So you have the Raiders winning, you have the Steelers winning, and you have the Colts winning. So all the higher seeds at the moment. Well, you hope that you're going to beat the Raiders, obviously, but for this podcast, that would then set the stage for Raiders versus Steelers.
I had the Bills winning.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Bills. You're right. Yep. So Raiders versus Steelers and Bills versus Patriots. Obviously, the Bills and Patriots have played each other a number of times in the AFC East, and those have went back and forth. I would feel pretty clear advantage for Raiders over Steelers, but I don't know if I could pick one way or another between our current Super Bowl winner, Mickey, and the Bills. Like, that's going to be a quality matchup.
Yeah, looking at this season, it looks like week 1 it went 34-28 for Mickey with the win, and it looks like week 6 it went back to Bobo. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, I'm off. My bad. Wrong.
Live radio, everyone. That's all right.
Wrong teams.
Wait, how can you have wrong teams pulled up? Like, I get it if you're looking at the wrong record, but you have wrong teams pulled up in their schedule.
I looked at the Dolphins Patriots game. It looks like week 9. They played the Bills. Looks like Bobo won 34-31, so he won by that 3. And then obviously in the last game, the game of the week, he beat Bobo 14-9. So he won by 4. So I think it's going to end up being somewhat of the same thing. At the end of the day, it comes down to stopping the one and only Lamar Jackson. So
is it Lamar Jackson, or is it stopping that god tier running back that was kept from last year and I think is 99 overall and like 96 speed? Wilson, I believe his name is, from the Patriots side of thing. Like, to have Lamar is one thing. To have Wilson on top of it too is just absolutely insane.
Yeah,
like it's a hard thing to say. To reinforce your point on how close that matchup could be, the Patriots in season 1 won 38-20 against the Bills in week 8. But however, in week 16, with the Bills fighting for the playoff spot and superiority in the division, Bills ended up winning 17-14. So they've won by a field goal on 2 separate occasions. I think the Bills end up losing in the playoffs to the Pats 27-13 in the divisional round, which is, again, where they match up this week, or this upcoming week if all the predictions go the way we anticipate. But that's like, I would put that game again within a touchdown spread, and I think easily you could even see Bobo Babo getting a win for once in this playoff matchup.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to go with don't screw me over, Bobo. I'm going to go with him. I feel like Mickey's been a little more inconsistent here towards the end of the season. I don't know if he's just kind of been waiting for the playoffs.
He's got school going on too.
Yeah. So it seems like it's just been flip-flopping back and forth, win-loss for them. So with the Patriots winning the last game, I'm going to go with the Bills pulling it out in the playoffs. I know he'll do a lot of film as well. So
I can't pick against my boy Lamar Jackson, but just for like conversation's sake, let's go ahead and say Baba Bobo ends up winning in this contest and goes and faces Danny for the right to go to the Super Bowl. How do you see that matchup playing out? Because I know they play, but not all that often.
It's gonna be a close one. I feel like through the history, I think they've only played once this Madden, but I feel like last Madden, Bobo kind of had his number. So
yeah, that was the Lions Cowboys matchup from last year, and that was true, I think, 2 times, at least I can remember, either in the playoffs or in the regular season to determine stuff. That was a win for Babo.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to go in the AFC Championship, Raiders, Bills. I'm going to go with the Bills. All
right. So that has you now rooting, of course, for your friend, so there's no biasness whatsoever in this podcast. That has Bills and BLD then to determine who wins TBA season 2. That's like I'm putting 14.5 points, if not more, on BLD to win. Is that insane for me? I just think like BLD can stop that running attack pretty well. And if that's the case, then it becomes which bad read is going to kill the Bills first.
Yeah, back to going back to the first podcast where I had spoken of Bobo and BLD not playing, and you said that they had played. I had looked and I talked to Bobo. They have not played Madden one time against each other.
Oh God! See, now I want this matchup. Damn it! Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, and BLD is definitely one of the top dogs, if not the top dog. But I don't know. Last time I played BLD, I was able to put up a good amount of rushing yards with I think I used my third string running back because it was week 17. But I don't know which way this game goes. It's when you're playing somebody for the first time too. It's just especially too.
I'm taking the best player that I know in Madden every single time, and that's BLD. And it's not just because I'm supporting the NFC, which is going to be the Super Bowl winner. I think at the end of this year, I'm taking BLD every time in that matchup. There's no other way around it. For sure, it's going to happen.
I'm just gonna go with my boy. I think the reason is I'm gonna go with him is because going through the AFC playoffs is a dogfight.
Yes.
Not a Sunday stroll in Central Park like the NFC. But
what are you talking about? The top 4 teams are going to be in the second round. It's going to be great.
I'm gonna go with the AFC. I'm gonna go with the Bills.
Well, I hope for podcast supremacy's sake, BLD carries the torch well enough for me if that ends up coming to fruition. I don't know if we'll do a podcast before the end of the playoffs or maybe after the offseason, recapping things. We'll kind of see what our schedules look like. But this was good to be able to break it down and certainly go over the wild card, I guess, esque games that are going on to start and running through our favorites. I mean, I was hoping this wouldn't be long yet. Here we've spent over an hour talking or close to it. So we'll let the listeners kind of weigh in. Of course, if you want to message and talk to us, go to the locker room chat, kind of discuss things yourself. I know you'll have the podcast, posted hopefully today. Well, I don't know what your schedule looks like for that, but and we'll hopefully have some of these games going on pretty darn soon to kind of see who ends up winning and covering the spreads and everything else. Again, thank you guys for listening, but also thank you for participating in Game of the Week. We'll have the points rewarded out to you if you've played the games in the near future. And I'll probably have some messages in important, but also in DMs to make sure we have a draft and off-season schedule kind of planned out. Again, season 2 of a fantasy draft league, there really isn't any consequential guys, but still want you to be able to participate as best we can. And hopefully there'll be no blue screen glitches going on this time around like we had last year.
Yeah, you never know with good old EA.
I'm just crossing my fingers. Let's be positive, Roach. Let's just be positive.
Yeah, videos of their people crying. So you never know with them.
That's true. All right. That does for us. And again, thanks for listening. Stick around for the next podcast whenever that ends up happening. And best of luck to everybody competing in the Season 2 TBA playoffs.
Yep. Good luck, everybody.